Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for your advanced look at the Black Panther by Christopher Priest Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So, what we're looking at here is the Black Panther by Christopher Priest Omnibus Volume 2. We had Volume 1 released a couple of years ago, and Volume 2 had a little bit of a delay, but it is finally here in February of 2024. As a matter of fact, it is coming out in the direct market and book market on February 20th or 21st, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the one that's supplied by Sal Velluto. And on the left-hand side is your standard edition cover supplied by Liam Sharp. That one is available everywhere, whereas the direct market is only available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, comicsbugle.com, Organic Price Books, Dying Breed Collectors, Tales of Wonder, In-Stock Trades, Read Comics, and places like that. But everything underneath the dust jacket is the same. So let's take a closer look at this one here. We have Black Panther standing in the very foreground. Behind him are the Defenders, maybe. They make a appearance through this book. And wanted to showcase the first omnibus right here, but mainly the way it will look on your shelf. Black Panther by Christopher Priest. Priest, Bennett, Calafiore, Lucas, and Velluto. And that image right there of T'Challa with Volume 2. And the backs of the book that actually have the same kind of pattern. As a matter of fact, they have the same pattern underneath the dust jacket. We'll look at it here in a second. It is rated Teen Plus. This one retailing for $125, while the first volume is $100. And you can see the covers there of all the issues collected in here and what's collected down there. Let's look underneath that dust jacket and check out the flaps here. A Tale of Three Panthers. That's actually a really accurate description of what's happening in here. And then a little bit about the creators. And then this image of an invasion that's taken place in issue, I think this is issue 49, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a freaking awesome image. All right, I'm going to crack the book open, talk about the stories found in here, and check out the artwork with you all. But maybe like minor spoilers in case you haven't read the first volume, so just to play it safe. Okay, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. You have some black end sheets right here, very similar to the ones found in Volume 1. And you have this image of Black Panther, and who's this cat? Well, you may find out in this omnibus. And of course, the credits over here, written by Christopher Priest. There are two issues that are not. They're done by Jay Torres. There's plot and technical assistance for issue number 45, and that's an anniversary issue. And then the pencilers here, Jimmy Calafiore, Sal Velluto, Jorge Lucas, Dan Fraga, Ryan Bodheim, and Patrick Searcher finishing out the run. And then you have Joe Bennett working on the crew, and John Bogdanove on the Incredible Hulk issue. And then this issue of Thor that's in here, drawn by the legendary John Buscema. Why exactly is that in here? Well, I'll explain when we get to the, I guess, minor spoilery part of this, because I'm going to be talking about the book itself. But before I do, this book collects Black Panther 34 through 62, and then it's, of course, known as Black Panther Volume 3, the series that started with issue number 1 in 1998. Also collecting Incredible Hulk number 33 after the relaunch in 2000, and The Crew 1 through 7, as well as Thor 370, 920 pages, $125. So we kick it off with this two-parter, but we know that Christopher Priest, even though he breaks down his stories into different arcs, we know that he has an overall arc through here. So in here we see Mephisto, but it seems like his mind has been switched, and it's a little bit confusing at first. But it has been switched with that of Everett K. Ross, the character that was introduced through the first pages, the liaison to the Black Panther that was supposed to be with him for 4 days. And here we are in comic book time a year later. And in this particular story, not only are we dealing with Everett Ross, but we're also dealing with something going on in Wakanda. It seems like Manape is back, and he's back with a vengeance, and he wants to take over the kingdom. But not before there's Black Panther and Peter Gyrich. That's right, Peter is now with, did I say Gyrich? Gyrich. You may know Peter from the pages, not Peter, I'm sorry, Henry Gyrich. This is the guy, no, it is Peter. It's Henry Peter Gyrich. Damn, I got my X-Men facts straight. That's right. But this is a character you probably know from the pages of Avengers. He's from the pages of X-Men. He's been around for a long time. And in here, we do see the invasion of Wakanda by Manape. And he gets to fight this guy. Now, this guy's a really interesting character. This is Vibraxis. And Vibraxis is a character that has been around since, oh my goodness, I think it's Fantastic Four, like, I want to say 390, 391, something like that. Tom DeFalco character. Paul Ryan was the artist that designed him. But he does use vibranium to fight, and he uses it in a very unique way. And we also have Queen Divine Justice from earlier on in Christopher Priest's run. And she will play a big role through here. So we start off with that invasion. It's a two-parter while we are still dealing with Everett and Mephisto. And the Everett and Mephisto story lead into another story arc. But before we do, we need to talk about something important that happens here. Because if you remember from the dust jacket flaps, it says this is a story of, or a tale of three Panthers. Well, here's our first one. And if this is T'Challa, then who is this? Who is the original Black Panther? And who is the real Black Panther? And then we kick off another story arc set in the future. And this is a very unique take in the future where it's 25 years into the future where T'Challa has to put on the costume to stop both of his kids. He teams up with some other black superheroes. And it's just a very interesting, like, not Days of Future Past, but it's just a very interesting take on the character. That leads to the storyline in the Hulk issue with, I love John Bogdanove, and I'm sure the jokes are going to be around that the Hulk skipped leg day. I don't care. I still think he's a phenomenal artist. I loved his artwork in Superman, and whoa! What the hell was I saying? Superman? John Bogdanove, yes. I love the way that he draws, like, Artie and Leach, and he did the miniseries The Exterminators. So we finally get this big storyline, even though, like I said, it's broken down in this different story arcs of Mephisto and Everett, and it plays out with the character of Iron Fist, and perhaps a dragon. The Nuff Said issue is collected in here as well, and the Nuff Said was this idea from the editors that one issue in the exact same month from every line, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, or it was New X-Men at the time, Avengers, Captain America, everyone would have a silent issue. Now, of course, there were writers that had different loopholes to get around the fact that they couldn't use dialogue. But that is the Return of the Dragon story arc. Now, what happens through here, there's this big war that takes place in between Wakanda and the Jabari. And we have the sequel to Enemy of the State, which pits T'Challa against Iron Man, but Wolverine gets caught in the middle. While that's happening, we have this guy running around. I love the way that Voluto draws him and Princess, what is her name? Zara? And it's just obviously Kirby, right? Like, definitely that Kirby flair. There's this Black Panther running around, and people are calling him King T'Challa. And is it really him? And then later on, he starts getting other nicknames, like, what is it that they call him? It's like Looney Tunes, Black Panther. They give him all kinds of different nicknames because they don't believe that he's the real Black Panther. But his storyline is actually really interesting. Happy Pants. That's the other one. Happy Pants Panther. And again, there's this big fight between Iron Man. You can find out why he's fighting Iron Man. But there's this cool tech battle happening. There is a really cool way that Black Panther fights Iron Man. And it's like, who's got the most money? And I thought that was really interesting too. It's not the big part of the battle, but it's a small part that makes sense. I mean, you got one of the richest guys in the world fighting against a guy that owns all these tech companies. Well, some of these tech companies could have silent partners. Anyway, that ends and they get thrown into the Wild West. And this is such a freaking cool story because when I read this the first time, I had read this in, I think it was in trades or complete collections, maybe. And when I was reading it that way, I noticed that this was very familiar. There's a character that appears through here named Sundance that Everett Ross gets mistaken for. And I was like, I know I've read that before. And it was written by Christopher Priest when he was going as James Owsley. And it was Big John Buscema that drew it. And it's got a story about Loki in here in the Wild West, like Two Gun Kid and Kid Colt join in the fight. But it's told through their perspective instead of Thor's perspective. And as I was reading it, I thought, oh man, it would have been so cool if they got Big John Buscema to draw it. That would have been so awesome. Then we have the two story arcs in here that it's called The Death of the King. And we do see Magneto playing an interesting part in this. We see Storm play a pretty interesting part. And that leads into issue number 50 where things change. And I mean things change. This is when things get really interesting. And I've talked about Christopher Priest's run being my favorite run. I love this cover, by the way, by Andy Kubert. Being my favorite run on Black Panther. And a lot of it has to do with the way that he wrote T'Challa. The understanding of the politics of this made-up kingdom and how it has to deal with the rest of the world. Because I love the fact that Christopher Priest just thinks about all these things ahead of time. How this particular kingdom would react if it had all this power. How it would react to the other countries that don't, especially in the continent of Africa, and how it would deal with crimes going on elsewhere, being part of the United Nations. But this is my favorite story arc in Christopher Priest's run. This is the black and white storyline, and we meet a new Black Panther, and I'm not going to say if it's T'Challa or if it's somebody else, but this character feels a lot different. This character uses guns, and he's fighting just crime in the streets of New York instead of being in Wakanda. So you don't really see characters in here like Everett. You don't see any of the supporting cast from Wakanda. And you may or may not even see T'Challa if it's not really him. Dan Fraga does the artwork, and then Jorge Lucas steps in, and then Jimmy Calafiore does some of the artwork as well. And then, of course, it leads back to Wakanda, where we wrap up the series with the return of, Christopher Priest's favorite villain. But there's other little twists and turns through here. And you're going to see what ends up happening between T'Challa and his relationship with Monica Lynn. Now, when the series was over, you can follow Black Panther in the pages of Avengers, and then follow this new character known as White Tiger that was introduced through Christopher Priest's run in the pages of The Crew. And The Crew is this really interesting story about these characters that are brought together because of death in Rhodey's life. James Rhodes, the character of War Machine. He's put together a kind of street-level team of characters, and some of them have ties to Black Panther, of course, but also ties to another character that I kind of want to keep quiet about, because if you haven't read it, it's really interesting where this goes. But in here, you're going to find the characters of, like I mentioned, the White Tiger, whomever that may be. The character of Junta, who was, of course, first appeared through the pages of Christopher Priest's run on Black Panther. Rhodey, as I mentioned, James Rhodey. And this new character named Josiah X. But it's a 7-issue series, and it's been collected in the complete collection, and now it's available here. And I'm so glad that it wraps up some of the big fights, some of the gang wars that were started in the black and white story arc. So I'm glad that it was added into this omnibus. And all the way in the back, you have the issue of Thor collected in here. Never has it been collected in omnibus format, and it gives me hope that we will get this era of Thor collected in omnibus format. Some of these characters, of course, appearing in Black Panther. Those 2 issues where he goes to the past, to the Wild West. The script here, so there is an afterword right here for the issues of Black Panther 26 through 37. And this is the Nuff Said script of that silent issue. Some unused ideas over here, like having this cover being an homage cover to the Beatles with the Beatles cover. Pencils and then inks right there of Enemy of the State. Some original art. I love the fact that Voluto was really channeling his inner Kirby for those. And Dan Fraga, Larry Stucker artwork there. And some Jimmy Calafiore pieces. And then this is from the Marvel Knights Millennial Visions, where people re-envision the character of Black Panther. And including this version right here. I like that one, though. That's by Voluto. And then this piece, that was the original concept for issue number 49 cover, but they decided to use it for the Panini's French release of Marvel Monsters Edition. And then your end sheets. Now let's take a look at the binding. Printed at the Mega Print, and it is sewn binding. It's what the eye looks like. 920 pages. And as far as the paper stock, it does have some thick, glossy paper. It kind of reminds me of the... Actually, a little thicker than some of the latest Donley printer. And thicker than the iMac printers. But that's it. That is Christopher Priest's run on Black Panther. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you have the complete collections, if you've read it in single issues, and if you have read it, what you think of this run and what your favorite Black Panther run is. What other Black Panther runs would you love to see collected in omnibus format? Finish out the classics, or do a Reggie Hudlin run? I would love to know all those comments down below. I would love to know all of those comments down below. If you have any questions, please don't forget to ask the questions in the comments below. Check out our Patreon and Spread Shop, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.